Welcome to the Missouri History Museum's virtual homeschool day for September 2020. Our theme this month is Go Team Go. This video is part of our virtual craft room. My name is Allison, and today we'll be making a sun catcher. When we think about teams and teamwork, we often think about famous sports teams such as the St. Louis Cardinals or the St. Louis Blues. But teams and teamwork can mean a lot of things, from playing on sports teams to working together with friends, family, or community. Today, I hope you'll work together as a family team to create a sun catcher. For your sun catcher, you can also use logos from popular sports teams like Fredbird of the Cardinals or the Blue Note for the St. Louis Blues. Or you could use logos of teams that are no longer in St. Louis, but have left a lasting impression on our city. Like, for instance, the Browns. They had Brownie, who was their team mascot. Or you could also use the Hawks, which was an NBA team. They actually won a championship. I drew both of those images from our online collection, and you can find the link for those on our website. Another option could be the logo of a sports team that you play for, or you could come up with a family logo, kind of like my family did. Here's my example. So I designed this. It's a B for Beers, my last name, and it shows flags for both Missouri and Maine because we live in Missouri, but we love to go up and visit in Maine every summer. All right, so let's get started on our sun catcher. So first, of course, you have to draw your logo and then cut it out. So I'm gonna cut this out. This would be a good time to pause if you want to take the time to draw your logo. Also, I have posted the pictures of Brownie and the Hawk as well. So if you just even wanted to print those out, you are more than welcome to use my images. So I'm gonna cut out my B here, and you should be cutting out your logo that you've created or printed out. All right, so there is my B all cut out. And the next thing we're gonna need to do is we're going to take our Ziploc baggie, all right, and we're going to cut the zipper portion off it. So if you don't want to use a brand new one, I would suggest you repurpose an old one, which is what I did. So cut that off, and then I'm just gonna trim down the sides. Get the scissors in there. So trim down each side, but leave the bottom. That's gonna make it easier later on when we go to finish our sun catcher. It makes it a little bit easier to glue it all together. So then you have your baggie that looks like this. Now, before we do any gluing, you'll notice that on my examples, each one of these has a frame. So if you plan on making a frame, which I do recommend, it just kind of makes it look a little bit tidier, now would be the best time to make your frame. So I'm using a piece of yellow construction paper. You could use an old folder. Any type of cardstock would work for this as well. It doesn't need to be a fancy frame. All I do is I just kind of put the baggie kind of in the middle where I want. And then the main thing that you're gonna want to remember when you're making your frame is that the opening of the frame should be a little bit smaller, because you want to make sure that there's a little bit of lip so that you'll be able to glue it in, all right? So I just kind of, and like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I might just go, I don't know, like 1/4 of an inch in on each one. on each corner here. Like that. And then I'm just going to draw some very rudimentary lines. And then if you want to just make sure that your frame is the right size, I would just, after I've drawn my lines, just lay the baggie back over top and just double check, kind of like I did, that my lines are inside of the plastic, because that's how you know that you've made your opening the right size. And then you're just going to cut your frame out. And then after you're done cutting your frame out, you can just set it to the side because you won't need it for a while. Now, I didn't get fancy. You can see I made a frame for the front, but I did not put one on the back. If you did want to get really fancy with these, which whatever, then you might want to put another frame on the back. So you would just need to make 2 of these. But personally, I think it's fine like this. But if you want to do a double-sided frame, you're more than welcome to do that. It's just going to take you a little bit extra time. All right, so we're gonna, and then the easiest way to cut a frame out in the center, because the center cut can be tricky, I usually just kind of make an X like that and cut the center out, and then cut my frame. And then after, you can erase your pencil markings, but I didn't bother because I just made sure that the pencil markings were on the back side of my sun catcher, and then they're not even visible anyway. All right, so just like that. I guess it's a little uneven. I'm gonna trim it down one side, but like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, or it can be perfect, it's up to you. So there's my frame. I already double checked. My baggie will fit on the inside of it. And now I can just kind of set this off to the side. We won't need it for a while. All right, so now that we have the frame already, what you're gonna do, you need your baggie again. I would take that baggie and I'm gonna open it up. All right, and you're gonna be working on one side of the baggie only. All right, and then you're gonna take your logo that you've created. This is probably the most important part. You wanna make sure when you glue it, that you glue it face down. All right, it has to be face down. Anything else could probably be fixable, but if you glue that the wrong way, you're probably gonna have to remake your logo, and you may need another plastic baggie after that. So let's make sure and glue that down properly. So the type of glue that I really like Mod Podge. It works. I like to use a pencil or a paintbrush with my Mod Podge. It just makes it a little bit easier. You can also just use regular craft glue. I even saw where you can add a little bit of water to your craft glue and basically make Mod Podge. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my paintbrush and I dip it in some Mod Podge, and I'm gonna put a coat just on the front of my logo, and then I'll just glue that down. And if you can get it all the way on it, that's, I think, the best, because then it'll glue down evenly, but just do the best you can. All right, so I have covered this in Mod Podge or glue, whatever you're using. And now I'm just going to, on one side of my baggie, and you can see where the halfway point is, I'm just going to lay this down, and of course we're going to do it face down, all right? So then it should look like this. All right. So then once you have that done, you don't even need to wait for it to dry or anything. Then what I did is I selected some different colors of tissue paper based on the colors that I had used on my logo. So I use blue, I have yellow, I have white, I have red. You can use just one color like I did with my original samples, or you can use multiple colors. Either way, I think it's gonna give it a really, really cool look. And then all you're gonna do is you are just gonna start tearing off little pieces. And the more random, the better, because it gives it a really neat stained glass effect, I find. The more you kind of tear them up and the more random the pieces of tissue paper. So you're just gonna tear up some pieces. And then again, with that Mod Podge or glue, whatever you're using, you're simply going to start gluing the pieces down. So I'm gonna take a little bit of my Mod Podge, and instead of putting it on the tissue paper, I'm actually gonna put it on the plastic and then put the tissue paper on top. So I'm just gonna kind of cover some of this. One thing I did notice is when you hold it up to the sun, if you kind of overlap on your logo, it's noticeable. So I actually just covered the whole surface with the different tissue paper, and it makes it look a lot cooler once you put it up against, like if you're going to put it in a window, it makes it look really, really neat. So then I'm just going to start laying these little pieces of tissue. All right, so now you should be all done gluing your tissue on. It's really up to you if you want to leave it to dry for a little bit. You're more than welcome to do that, or if you're really excited to see what it's going to look like as a finished product, then we can just get started. So once again, you're going to need your Mod Podge or your glue, and this time what we're going to be doing is we're going to be gluing the back flap of the plastic baggie. We're going to glue that over onto the back side of our sun catcher. So again, just take that paintbrush or whatever you're using. I find it just easy to just kind of put a coat all over. And it doesn't have to be a thick coat. It can just be a thin coat. All it's really going to do is just sort of hold everything together. So there, now I've got a coat of Mod Podge. And then all you're going to do is you're just going to flip it over. Like that. And then, like I said, it's just going to hold everything together. And if there are some stray pieces that are hanging out the side, it really doesn't matter, because that's why we made the frame. So we're going to hide a lot of those imperfections with our frame. So now you should have this portion of the sun catcher ready to go. And now we just need to grab those frames that we made. So here's my frame. I think my pencil marks are on this side, so that's going to be the side that I actually put the glue on, so then it'll also hide the pencil marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, once again, take a little bit of glue, take a little bit of Mod Podge, and I'm just going to put a coat kind of around the frame. And if you have something that you could lay it on, that's great, because I'm getting some on my table, but it's not really a big deal, because the great thing about Mod Podge and craft glue is it's really easy to clean up. Then you're going to take your sun catcher in the plastic, and you're just going to lay it over top. Just like that. And it should be nice and framed for you. One other thing I'm going to do is just to reinforce that, I'm going to take my paintbrush and my Mod Podge one more time, and I'm just going to put a little bit on top that kind of spreads out to the edges. I just think it holds it just a little bit better. And then those edges that we said not to worry about, if there's anything visible, which you can see that there's a little piece that's visible, then you can come in and do any trimming that needs to be done. But it's not as much. So there, you have it in your frame. All right. Now, if you choose, you can take a hole punch, and if you have some ribbon or twine or thin rope, you can punch a hole in it and run a ribbon through it so that you could hang it this way, or you can just leave it alone. My son wants this one for his window, so I'm probably just going to leave it like this and put a little tape on the back and tape it to the window in his bedroom. And this one, I might put a ribbon in this one, but I'm going to let it dry for a while, and then I'll punch my hole and run a ribbon through it. And that's it. You have an awesome sun catcher to enjoy. Thank you so much for joining us. Please check out the other craft room videos as well as more online learning opportunities we have on our website. Thank you very much. Bye.